Hello, good morning to all. Hope you all are well. And today we are going to discuss our second block in science. Our second block name is growing new plants. Growing new plants. Our first block also we learned that the germination and the growth of a plant and stages of germination, all those things we discussed. And here we are going to discuss a similar topic, growing new plants. Okay, so we can start our first lesson. Our first lesson name is growing plants without seed. Is it possible? Last chapter or last block we learned about the new plants are coming from a seed, and now growing plants without seed. It will be like a confusion. Is there any confusion? No problem, we can clarify it. Okay, so growing plants without seeds. Is it possible? Yes, it's possible. How? Normally we consider, or before going to start, we can consider one more thing. The main aim to this section or this lesson is, the aim of this lesson to explain plants can grow without seed. Plants can grow without seed. Okay, so how it will be? When we are looking around us, you can see that there will be different kinds of plants. Is it right? So plants we can divide it two types. We can divide the plants two types that are, can you say? When we just look outside, and there are two kinds of plants you can able to see. Can you say which kind of plants you can see around us that are flowering plant and non-flowering plant? Okay, flowering plant and non-flowering plant. Is it right? Yes, some plants. What do you mean by this flowering plant? Yes, right. The plants which bears flowers in it are considered as flowering plant, and non-flowering plants, as the name indicates, the plants which doesn't have flowers in it, that we can consider as a non-flowering plant. Okay, and now I am going to clarify your doubt about how a plant can grow without seed. See here, flowering plant. Okay, this flowering plants can produce the seed. Flowering plants can produce the seed. As a result, that seed can produce the new plant. Okay, so these flowering plants can produce seed. Okay, non-flowering plants. Non-flowering. That means they can't able to produce the flowers. At the same time, they can't, so that seed will never forms. So they can't able to produce the seed. So we can say that only these flowering plants can produce the seed, and from the seed that new plants can grow. What will happen in the case of non-flowering plant? They also want to continue their species, right? So that only we are discussing in our blog or in this lesson also. Okay, so that means plants are dividing into two types, that are flowering plant and non-flowering plants. All the flowering plants can produce the seed, and from the seeds there will be a growth of new plant. In the case of non-flowering plants, what will happen? They can't able to produce the seed. As a result, germination will not be happen, so they can't able to grow. So from their body some parts are there. Normally when we are looking around us, we can see some parts, or we can see the plants in some particular parts. What all the parts you can able to see when we are looking outside? Can you able to see the leaves? Yes, normally we knows that if we consider a plant, okay, any kinds of plant, and it may have leaves in it, right? Leaves are there. Then what all other things? This root will be present, leaves also will be present, then stem. These are the other parts, okay. And how these, if you consider that it's a non-flowering plant, there is no flowers in it, because now we are going to discuss about this non-flowering plant. In this non-flowering plant, parts, normally we have stem, leaves and root. They have to produce the new ones. How it will be? See, look at here. What is this? Potato, right? Yes. Normally in potato, when we look around the potato, we can see some kinds of white spots in the potato. Is it right? Maybe I don't know how it will be cleared for you. Here you can see some white parts. Okay, these white parts, or like these things, or otherwise in your home also, that in kitchen potato will be available, right? And that potato you can just look around it. After our class, you just look around it, or if it is possible now itself you can see it. Okay, so here you can see some white marks or white things coming out, right? This is termed as eye or buds of a potato. What? Eye or bud of a potato. This eye and buds have a speciality. What is the speciality? That means it can produce the new plant. That means this buds or eye can produce new plant. Okay, actually can you say this? This is if we consider the potato. Here I told you that some parts will be there, leaves, stem and root. Which part it will be for a potato plant? Can you say? Yes, it's stem. Actually this is the stem of the potato, and from the stem they can produce new plant. Okay, actually this if we consider this potato, it's not seed, right? And if we consider this this potato is actually the stem of a potato plant. So this stem contains eye or buds. From this eye or buds can again produce the new plants. So this way we can discuss the growing plants without seed. It's in growing. From this eye or buds there will be a growth of plant without seed. Okay, so we can say that this is the one of the example of growing plants without seed. Like these kinds of producing or growing of plant without seed by using the parts of a plant, that means for this process we can call it one name, that is vegetative propagation. What is that? vegetative propagation. So this is the keyword we are discussing in, that means keyword or new word in this lesson. Keyword, that is vegetative propagation. Vegetative propagation is the keyword or new word that we are learning in this section. Vegetative propagation. Okay, vegetative propagation. What is this vegetative propagation? That means growth of a new plant from the part of any part of a plant, that is considered as vegetative propagation. And this vegetative propagation of this potato, it will be natural. And in some other cases, some flowering plants also undergo vegetative propagation. We know that rose flower. Okay, so how can we produce, or if we consider the rose plant, what will happen? The rose plants, how we are planting the new one, we are cutting its stem and we are placing to the, or we are just like that we are doing, is it right? So it is like an artificial way of vegetative propagation. These, in the case of potato, that we can consider natural way, there is no any external support. But if we consider the case of rose plant, what will happen? We need to cut the stem, and from this stem there will be the growth of another plant. Okay, so this cutting of stem is like an artificial way. How can we say it is artificial? Because human beings are involving, right? And in the case of this potato, it will be a natural way of vegetative propagation. Okay, that's all about this lesson. We will, our next lesson name is vegetative propagation. So we will learn detail about vegetative propagation. So that's all about our first lesson, growing plants without seed. In this lesson, what we are going to discuss to explain plants can grow without seed. How it will be? We are dividing the plants into two types, flowering plants and non-flowering plant. And these flowering plants having a speciality, they can produce the seed. For example, mango, apple, these all when we are considering time, they can produce the seed. As a result, this seed can produce the new plant by using, due to the process of germination that we learned in our first block. And non-flowering plants, they are not having any kinds of seed and also germination will not happen. They can't able to produce the new ones. Then what will happen? These non-flowering plants, different. If we consider the non-flowering plants, they can't able to produce the seed. That's why their body is specially designed for that. In their body, not only flowering, if we consider the non-flowering plants, some parts will be there, leaves, root, stem. Okay, in this each and every parts, according to their structure, some of the plants stem can produce the new plants. Some of the cases leaves can produce new, and some of the cases root can able to produce a new plant. So that all the things we will discuss in our next lesson. So that process of producing or growing of plants without seed is considered as vegetative propagation. In vegetative propagation, the production of a new plant with the body parts of a plant or vegetative. These parts, stem, leaves and root is considered as vegetative part of a plant. So the production of a new plant from the vegetative parts of a plant is considered as vegetative propagation. So that's all about our lesson. You should remember our new word, that is vegetative propagation. Its spelling also you should learn, and you should learn how to pronounce it, vegetative propagation. Now we can move on to our next lesson, that is vegetative propagation. Okay. Vegetative propagation. This is our second lesson, vegetative propagation. And here we are going to discuss about to explain the various methods of vegetative propagation. Its aim to explain various methods of vegetative propagation. What are the various methods of vegetative propagation? And what is vegetative propagation? If we consider about the vegetative propagation is the process in which new plants forms from the root, stem or leaf of a plant is considered as vegetative propagation. Vegetative propagation is the process of formation of a new plant from the root, stem or leaves of a plant is considered as vegetative propagation. So we know that what are the parts of a plant? If we consider root, stem and leaves. Okay, these three are the vegetative parts of a plant: root, stem, leaves. And in the stem, in the case of potato, we already discussed that its buds or eye, that buds also will be there. That is considered mainly these parts, root, stem, leaves are considered as vegetative part of a plant. Okay, and now you listen. Some of the plants can produce the new plants from their root. Okay, so that considered as root vegetative propagation, and the example of root vegetative propagations are mainly potato. Here in your content book you can see that examples like sweet potato and dahlia are some example of this. Here sweet potato, carrot, radish form new plants from their roots. So this is the example of what? Vegetative propagation by root. Okay, so in this section what you have to learn, you should learn what is vegetative propagation, and some case it will give what is the vegetative part of carrot. What is the vegetative part of the carrot? Root. Is it right? Because the carrot is forms from the root of a plant. Okay, and next we can move on to the next one, stem. Some plants can, like potato we already discussed it, potato is actually the stem of the plant. So like that, if we consider the potato, ginger, these all the cases, these kind of plants, or this potato, ginger, mint, sugarcane, bamboo, these all form new plants from their stem. Okay, so if the question is asking which is the vegetative part of potato? Which is the vegetative part of the potato? Stem. Okay, so these are the vegetative parts. Okay, so what you have to do, you should learn about each and every types of plant name by these vegetative parts. For the case of example of root vegetative propagation, carrot, sweet potato like that, and stem, ginger, potato, and mean sugarcane like that. Then next one means leaf. Our last case is leaves. Okay, which kind of plants can produce the new ones through leaves? That is bryophyllum has buds on the edges. See here you can see that bryophyllum, if we consider the bryophyllum, the edges of their leaves having some buds. When these buds are fall in a moist soil, then what will happen? They can produce the new plant. So bryophyllum is an example of leaf vegetative propagation. Okay, then next ones, if we consider, normally that's all about the vegetative propagation and various, these are the explained various methods of vegetative propagation. These three are the various methods of vegetative propagation: root vegetative propagation, stem vegetative propagation, and leaves vegetative propagation. And in this section what you have to do, you should learn each and every cases examples, plants name. For the case of root, carrot, sweet potato, and stem, potato, and ginger. Then we learned that sugarcane, bamboo. Then leaves, bryophyllum. That's a bryophylla. Each birds can form a new plant, and if it is fall in a moist soil, they can, means they changes like a new plant. Then plants formed by vegetative propagation can grow faster. The new plants have the same features. If we consider that if these plants, for example carrot, okay, if this carrot by this vegetative propagation, they can grow faster. Okay, at the same time the new plants from the parent plant, when a new plant is formed, their structure, their shape and everything will be looking similar to the parent plant. Okay, so the new plant will be similar to the parent plant. Okay, that's all about this section. If we consider the vegetative propagation, here also that new word is vegetative propagation only. That first lesson already I written about the keyword. Here also keyword is vegetative propagation. So I am not writing it again. So that's all about vegetative propagation. Vegetative propagation main aim is to explain various methods of vegetative propagation. What are the various methods of vegetative propagation? Root vegetative propagation, stem vegetative propagation, and leaves vegetative propagation. And this root, stem and leaves, already we know that these are the parts of a plant, and these parts of a plant we can consider as vegetative part of a plant. Okay, so each and every methods you should learn mainly the, if it is asking what do you mean by root vegetative propagation, then you can say that the formation of a new plant from the root of the plant is considered as root vegetative propagation. And what is stem vegetative propagation? The new plants are forms from the stem of a plant, then we can say that it is stem vegetative propagation. Then like that it will be, in this case what you have to do, you should learn each and every examples of this vegetative propagation. Examples for root and stem and at the same time leaves. Okay, these are the various method for vegetative propagation, and that example also you have to do. And what is the homeworks for today? That means you just try to complete your worksheet. That means your worksheet means S1 and S2. That means growing plants without seed and vegetative propagation. You just try to complete it. In means when you are writing the answers in your worksheet, it will be with the pencil. If there are any mistakes, we can rub it and we can correct it. Okay, so that's all about our first and second lesson in block 2. So you just go through your content book, you just read the content book and examples of root, stem and vegetative propagation, leaves, vegetative propagation you should learn. That's all about this lesson. Now we can stop our lesson. Okay, thank you.